Spawning in the top right corner, in the blue, it's innovation. And here in the bottom left corner, it is SCARLETT. So a very, very interesting set of matches that I think we're going to have on our hands here. So SCARLETT obviously is not exactly the same as Serral, right? So when people think of a tough macro Zerg, it's really hard to come up with any other names besides Serral, right? Serral is pretty much the #1 name. When you think of North American shenanigans, when you think of wacky Zergs, when you think of tricky Zergs, then that's where SCARLETT comes to mind. And I think that it's really cool to see her playstyle. I think that she is, unlike her opponent, no offense to Innovation, but just that, Innovation is, we call him the machine, we call him the robot for a reason, right? It's because his name doesn't actually really, truly, at least, most of the time, it doesn't really live up to his playstyle. Whereas SCARLETT, she has innovated so much in the history of Zerg. I believe she was the one who came up with the idea of extra queen specifically for creep and for defense. And I mean, honestly, like I was talking to a Grandmaster Protoss friend of mine. He's like 5.5k. He knows what's up, and he was telling me like he kind of wants to see SCARLETT write a book. And he was telling me he's a Protoss player, but he likes playing Zerg, and he was thinking, SCARLETT could probably write a whole series on how to play Zerg. So, anyways, we open up with some pretty standard play here on Pillars of Gold in game one. So far, no, early pool, no proxy racks, anything cheesy like that. We actually do have some extra drones coming down early. I believe they were pulled off gas. We see the Reaper going across right now. And the SCV earlier, it was a later scout just to make sure, hey, is there a creep here? Is there a natural? And there is. So, again, no real shenanigans afoot. We just see those two queens producing. We see a factory going down. And yeah, well, now it's really the only thing to for Innovation to really try to pull ahead in is this early game micro, right? You want to actually gets a Ling, which is it's not bad. It's not like it actually matters in the long. It gets 2 Lings. That actually does matter a little bit, right? That's an extra 50 minerals that SCARLETT will have to spend on extra Lings because you need those Lings in the early game to defend against the eventual Hellions. That is, of course, considering that Innovation does go for Hellions. It looks like it. He puts down a quick third. We just see that very, very standard, very, very macro, greedy sort of Terran playstyle. I love it, personally. I think that getting a couple of CCs before even a factory, like, oof. I mean, keep me in diamond, but I'm okay with that. Like, who needs a factory? But we do see that starport going down. We do see extra drones being made. This queen is doing its best to protect what Lings are left, and I just find that such a funny image, right? You've got the queen that honestly does not have the best DPS, but it just takes so much, and then you've got the Lings, which the DPS is not really anything to shrug at, especially in the early game. But as you get later into the game, as you get things like adrenal glands, I'm talking super late game, those Lings definitely become a force to be reckoned with. So we see the Reaper coming up into the main of SCARLETT. We have to see how much damage it does manage to do. It looks like it's about to... Oh, very good drone micro. Turns that drone into a Spore Crawler at the very last second. And the Reaper scouts that there are still 3 drones on gas. So we will have to wait to see what SCARLETT is banking gas up for. These 2 Hellions come into the third, and they do actually get some shots off, killing 1 drone. Killing 2 drones, actually. That drone was just about to morph into a Spore Crawler. Did not get the chance to do so, but now these Hellions are definitely dead. I don't know. 3 drones, it's 150 minerals, right? And a Hellion is 100 minerals. I'm not sure if that was a... Obviously, that was not worth it if you're looking purely at the minerals. However, if you look at the... Let's say, or it's impossible to look at, but if you consider the psychological damage, right? SCARLETT might be thinking to herself, being such a high-level player, she might be a little bit hard on herself. I don't actually know, but I know that if I were playing in a tournament for money, I would be hard on myself in the moment. You could be considering, okay, those 3 drones might actually be more valuable in that early stage of the game. SCARLETT is still ahead by 5 drones, and she's got 8 more drones on the production tab. This Banshee, I think it's a defensive Banshee because you don't have Cloak, you don't have the offensive abilities of the Banshee being researched right now. You just have Spore Crawlers coming up, defensive Spore Crawlers. Again, these are not because Scarlet was afraid of any sort of Cloak Banshee or BC play. It was just safety spores. We do see that Baneling Nest going down, the double Evo is coming up, and the lair is about to finish. I like this a lot. And a fourth as well. So we definitely have on our hands here a very, very macro-oriented game. We see that 1-1 coming up in the double NG Bay for innovation. So I think, if I were to take a guess, I think that we're just going to have to wait and see how that first +1/+1 push does, right? Because you see the Evos just finished, +1/+1 for the Zerg just started up, so there is going to be a window, as there usually is, for the Terran to have 1-1 where the Zerg is at a disadvantage, not having those upgrades. So that is obviously one of the most common timings for the Terran to push across with Marines. Marines typically bio. Typically, you've got siege tanks behind it or widow mines. I think both work extremely well. I'm not actually sure if tanks might be the right call here because Scarlet is known for being very, very aggressive with her lean veins. And tanks, if you catch them out of position, it's almost like they don't do any damage to the links, or they do very little damage. Worst case, you don't actually kill any banelings. You might kill a few lings with some pot shots, but by the time the lings surround the tanks, you just have nothing left. So we see 2 tanks moving out, 2 medevacs. I like this a lot. I think that these Hellions are keeping Scarlet on her toes, keeping Scarlet honest, clearing out the creeps, and really just setting innovation up for a good push, right? So we can see that the bio and the tanks are already going onto the creep that is being cleared. I'm sorry, that is being receded because of the lack of creep tumors. There are a sizable number of banelings and queens here, and I think that, you know, get some drones, but I honestly don't think that this fourth is going to go down. The siege location is so far away, it's actually not going to be in range of that fourth, which means that there's no consistent damage, right? You just have these Hellions sort of poking in and out. Now they're being morphed into Hellbats with the addition of the armory. +1, +2 attack has been started up. We see the Marines stimming in, trying to do some damage. A Ling counterattack actually does catch, does catch the third tank out of position. The Banes just finished speed and they're off creep. I believe that Scarlet is going for a counterattack. I don't know if this is the best move, right? Because even though these 2 tanks are out of range of the fourth, you need to consider that they could creep up. They could start doing additional damage later on. We'll just have to see. It looks like Innovation is just being very patient. He is ahead on the supply, surprisingly. Scarlet is floating a little bit of minerals. She does have a couple of macro hatcheries on the way, but I think that 1-1 timing obviously has been nullified, right? We see a huge surround, banelings coming in from all angles, and now we have to, oh my gosh, these banelings are definitely doing the damage. They're connecting. It's funny because we see that backup bio army that just sort of comes in and cleans up. These queens are not going to be able to engage on their own. Ooh, and one queen does go down. That queen on the front lines has seen some things. That queen tanking so much damage from the Marines. But it looks like there are no banelings left. These banelings just morphed in, but all of a sudden the tank is in range of the hatchery, and now we get that consistent damage that I was trying to get at earlier. We see some banelings being targeted, and I don't think this is enough. We have lings, we have a couple of banelings. There was a decent baneling connection, but obviously Scarlet agrees. She evacuates the drones, which are being gunned down, and the bio is just stimming forward, because at this point, Innovation knows. Innovation is sort of smelling blood, right? And he thinks to himself, okay, there are no banelings on the field, otherwise they would have been here by now. He is overstimmed, and GG is called. Innovation takes game 1. Wow. That was a very, very, very impressive match. I think that Innovation played it very well. I was a little bit worried at first because I thought that his 1-1 timing needed to be taken advantage of. The window is very short, right? Because Scarlet was also on top of her +1/+1 timing. However, Innovation did actually make the right call, and what a surprise. I'm wrong, he's right, right? He waited for Scarlet to finally pull the trigger, and he reinforced at the exact moment when all the banelings were either targeted down or wasted on other bio that was already sort of, you know, spelling a death sentence. So Innovation took that game very convincingly. The machine, right, just coming out with that very strong macro. And I think that Scarlet, maybe she was trying to go for a pretty sizable Ling Bane counterattack, maybe to cut off reinforcements, but in the end, those Lings and Banes in the back did not do anything except for defending the first wave. But again, by then, Innovation already had the second wave coming out. Now we're going to go into game number 2 on Jagannatha. I believe Zerg's... I know that at least I myself personally, as a Masters 3 Zerg, I do like Jagannatha. We see that nice wide open space that Lings can just run around on. We see those speedy zones, and it just reminds me of, I think it was, what was it, Year Zero, right? The polar opposite kind of map. There have been many other maps in the past where it's just not Zerg favored at all, because you've got these tight chokes, you've got these sort of high ground, low ground situations where, for example, Terran Mech can have a field day with. You can just set up tanks on one area, and those Lings being melee units, they have to go all the way around, you know, maybe a half the map or something. I'm exaggerating, of course, but they have to go around a quarter of the map or something just to get at the siege tanks, and by then it's already too late. So I'm excited to see what Scarlet will do against Innovation in Game 2. It's a little bit dicey at this point, right? Because Innovation has already taken the first game. So at this point, Scarlet is just hoping for either a tie or a complete loss. Alright, and in the bottom left corner on Game 2, here on Jagannatha, playing for KaiZi Gaming, it's Innovation. And in the top right corner, it's the red Zerg. It's Scarlet. So again, we see Innovation up 1-0 right now. I don't want to get my hopes up, right? I respect Scarlet immensely. I think that if I were to have half of her macro skill, I would be in a much better position than I am right now on the ladder. But I'm kind of rooting for her to go for an early pool, and as soon as I say that, there's a normal 16 hatch. So, you know, hopes and dreams are crushed. No worries, it's fine. But all joking aside, again, it looks like a very standard opener. We see the racks at home. We see a standard gas timing for Innovation. I don't think that Scarlet is getting... There we go. So Scarlet finally gets an extractor, and the pool, everything is standard. We get that shark with the mouse. I love that. So cute. So Scarlet sending out both overlords just to make sure that she gathers all the information that she needs, right? Because there have been many a time where the Zerg has been caught off guard. Maybe it's 2 extra Hellions, and all of a sudden your Lings are roasted. You don't have enough Queens to actually defend those speedy cars, as I like to call them. Or maybe it's a battlecruiser rush, or not rush, but a battlecruiser opener, and again, you don't have enough Queens because you didn't scout it, etc., etc. We see the same. We see a similar SUV scout. I believe it's going to catch the hatchery right as it finishes. Again, Innovation just making sure, okay, the Reaper is going to go out. Is it safe for it to move across the map, or should I keep it at home just in case there are Lings coming across or anything like that? The SUV does see that there is creep. The Reaper is heading across. Overall, things are looking exactly like the game before. We do see that quick third coming out with the drone being positioned. Innovation not actually going for the hatchery block or to contest the third, just letting it go down. This Reaper just sort of sitting in the speed zone. But this time, we do see Scarlet taking the straightaway third rather than the cross or the triangle third. Now, I believe that Zergs prefer this because it is easier to deal with drops, right? If you do it at the triangle third, obviously you've got the potential for the drop to just really quickly pick up and drop off in the main, or the other way around, pick up from the main and drop off into the mineral line of the third. And again, Lings being melee units, they have a hard time just sort of moving back and forth. That Reaper does see that it is indeed the straightaway third. We do see a quick third command center coming up for Innovation, put down before the starport, just like last game. I think Innovation was the one who pioneered that opener, I believe. I'm not too sure, but I mean, obviously he has a great time playing it. Ooh, that Reaper getting kind of low, looking for a little bit of damage as those drones are being spawned in the main and then being transferred down to the natural, but it doesn't quite get any. That is totally fine, I think. Now we see the first couple of Hellions. out on the field, I believe they're going to go join the Reaper, and then they're going to see what kind of damage they can do. Because obviously, 2 Hellions and a Reaper is a lot more than just 1 Reaper by itself. We do see a lot of Queens coming up. I do like this play. Ling speed is just about to finish. Yeah, there we go. I really don't think that those 2 Hellions can do much. Not with Scarlet's Queen control, although they might get that creep okay, nope. They are not going to get the creep tumor. That would have been bad timing on Scarlet's part, right? Or Scarlett is just feeling super confident and like, hey, I have 2 queens here. What are you going to do, right? I do like this Viking play, just shooing away some Overlords. And Overlords in the early game have to consider not only the mineral cost, right? Each one is 100 minerals, but you also have to consider the supply implications of killing an Overlord, especially this early in the game. It's just sort of exacerbated, whereas later on in the game, you might have an extra 100, 200 minerals, and you can just spend it on a couple of Overlords. Not here. Here, every single mineral counts. Although, as I say that, I do see that Innovation is floating just above, was floating just above 500 minerals. A little bit uncharacteristic, but I'm sure his micro... Yeah, I mean, just look at that 1 Hellion, right? It's in the red, so you gotta keep it alive. Scarlett, obviously famous for her creep spread, here already taking over, about a vertical third of the map. We do see the layers starting up. The Baneling nest, I believe, is finished, and we already see 6 safety Banelings being morphed. I do like this a lot. With these 4 Hellions, best case they scout the 4th. Worst case they all die, right? That is way too many Lings to really engage, and we see that the Lings do cost, because Scarlett is only up by 1 worker. However, she does morph in about 15 extra. 6 of them just popped as I said that. There are 10 more drones on the way, and that is the power of Zerg. You hold down the drone key, and, well, in my case, you hope for the best. In Scarlett's case, you know that you can get away with this, because Innovation has not been able to really do any sort of economic damage here in the early game. Does get that creep tumor almost accidentally, right? You place the Hellions and the Reaper just outside of the creep zone. That way you can catch any straight tumors like that. I like that a lot. It's a very APM efficient move, right? You're not actually spending any APM. Innovation sending out the Reaper to the corner base just to scout the 4th, quote unquote 4th. But I'm not sure if Innovation actually scouted the real 4th, because this corner base is actually the 5th base that Scarlett will have taken. That Ling actually just barely survives. Obviously, that Reaper was not backed by its Hellion brothers. Now, we do see the same thing, right? A 1-1 push with Combat Shield. Stem has already been researched. However, I believe in this game, Scarlett's own upgrades are a little bit later, and her Bane speed might actually not, or it might just barely finish by the time Innovation starts his push. However, we do see a double drop going into the main. I love this move a lot, right? Something as simple as this, something as simple as loading up a couple of medevacs and just setting up for a drop in the main. Any sort of multi-pronged attack, right? You just add 1 more quote-unquote prong, and the efficacy of your total attack is that much better. However, Scarlett, already on top of things, has those Lings ready, a Queen, as well as a Spore Crawler ready for that drop. Innovation scouted it, and so he drops out, and now he's just using these, I believe, 15 Marines, not exactly 16, and these 2. Oh, but are they going to... These medevacs are a little bit late. Wow. That excellent top-tier micro, just barely saving those Marines in time from that mass of Zerglings and Banelings. And I like this a lot. Innovation going for Widowmines and Drilling Claws rather than the Siege Tanks that we saw last game. But again, right, this multi-prong, you've got Widowmine drops that, Zerg are not exactly famous for defending. Protoss, though. Protoss hate it, but they're good at defending it. So we're going to have to keep an eye out and see how much damage that Widowmine potentially does. We do see a Spire. I like this move a lot, right? Mutiling Bane. That is a very common, very powerful composition in the right hands. And Scarlett is definitely a pro player that I would consider very, very capable of playing that style, right? It's very APM intensive. You got to babysit Venus all the time. Now, 1 Widowmine did drop in the corner base with no... Oh, 1 Widowmine already going down, but does siege in a very good location. Kills some Lings. 1 more Widowmine in the natural, and all of this... Okay, 10 drones in total for 1 Widowmine drop. That is definitely worth it. Does lose the medevac, does lose all the Widowmines, but that is 10 whole drones. Innovation again taking the supply lead. SCARLETT just sort of not really keeping up in the micro. Obviously, you know, you're being taxed on just by one Widowmine drop, you're taxed on 3 different angles or 3 different bases, right? Imagine if this double drop was also doing damage, maybe let's say in the main. All of a sudden you've got a 4-pronged attack. Now this double drop, oh my god, that was a nasty Widowmine shot from downtown. We just do a Baneling counterattack that actually does not do anything because of Innovation's perfect splits. That Widowmine shot earlier, oh my god, that was so nasty. How did it even fire that far, right? Like, once the animation starts, there's no stopping it, no matter how fast your Lings just try to scurry away. I do like this follow-up push to the western side of the map, however. We do see those Hellions from earlier being morphed into Hellbats just to, you know, sort of tank a little bit additional damage. These Widowmines being set up, being spread out. Okay, oh man, I always feel so nervous on this. Okay, I do like this, the Queens and the Spines just sort of holding off this double drop, which is, I believe it's going to be enough. Now the Banes do come forward. Huge Widowmine shots on the first wave of Banes. Mutas are out, so they are going to be able to sort of add another dimension to SCARLETT's defense, right? So it's not just from the front, from the side, but the Mutas can also, maybe they can snipe a Widowmine, they can snipe a stray Widowmine, a stray Medevac, that kind of, oh no, but the Mutas are actually all lost trying to defend. The double drop turned into triple drop. This, again, this was what I was talking about earlier. Once you introduce multi-pronged harass to your opponent, the game changes. A single, oh my god, these Widowmines, I can't even keep up, right? Now, the bio does eventually pick up. A double drop is, I believe, queued for either the main or the main. Yep, for the main, but all of it is going to be lost at the lane. Oh, are the Mutas going to die, though? Okay, so a lot of Mutas did die in the earlier defense. I thought that they were going across the map, actually. So, goes to show, right, my attention span. I just can't really keep up with these top-tier pros because they're just on top of everything. Now, as I say that, we do see this random 3 Marauder move out. I believe that was a miss rally, and you know, that's a pretty big amount, right? That's 300 minerals, 75 gas that is lost. I do like this move a lot, right? We see Thor's coming out. Innovation is really just sort of pulling further and further ahead. I do think that SCARLETT has a chance to take this game. I do think she has a chance. The win condition is going to be much slimmer and much tighter, and I don't think sacrificing Mutas is part of that win condition, as we see a follow-up push, keeping back the famous spread, the famous creep spread of SCARLETT. We see the first wave of Banes coming through, the Marauders in front tanking, big Widowmine shots again. That Thor is really doing some damage. We do see another morph in of Banelings, which is good, right? They are going to hold back. There comes a point, right, when you just, no matter how well you spread, there's just too many Banelings to sort of run up the ramp. But I think that Innovation is, the further and further we go into this game, it's pulling further and further ahead. These 2 Marauders, they are so annoying. Okay, finally they go down to the Mutas, but you know, you see that, I believe that is another drop scheduled for the west side of the map. But this base is in serious trouble, about a third health. A Queen is just sort of waddling around. Another wave of Banelings that are not going to do much, again, because Innovation is just going to pick up the Thor, which, by the way, has been doing incredible damage. And GG is called. Innovation takes the series 2-0.